Good morning, everyone. I am Jenny Rae. Welcome to Market Outsiders. We're here to build a community of people who are interested in business from not just public markets perspective, not just trading. They don't just want to put their money into trading markets, but who also have a specific interest in active management of businesses. And I'm here with my co-host, Namaan this morning. Namaan, have you encountered any weird businesses that you love so far this morning?
So many. But what we're actually talking about today is a business that all of us know and some of us love and some of us don't. It's Starbucks, which is appropriate. I've got my coffee. I'm ready to talk about coffee as I'm drinking it. If you'll remember yesterday, we talked about Starbucks's Q2 earnings, and we talked about how they missed on profit but beat on revenue, and how the shares were up around 4.5% in extended trading, and why the market was responding the way that it was to an earnings miss, but a revenue beat. And so if you missed yesterday's conversation, we're not going to rehash it here. We'll put the link in the show notes. You can go back and listen to it. It was 15 minutes. But what I did want to do today is build on that and talk about something that Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol mentioned in the earnings call that we didn't get a chance to discuss yesterday. And what he said was that the chain is moving away from pickup only and drive-through only stores. And his words were they lack warmth. And the way that I interpreted that was they just don't fit the vibe, bro. Right? Like that was kind of like the reasoning for for like no pickup stores, no drive-through only stores is like that's not our vibe. And I was like, okay, fair enough, but like what's the business rationale for ditching this? Because 40% or more of your orders are mobile orders. And your it takes 4 minutes to get a drink at Starbucks. Like I could see a lot of people being okay with like ordering a drink ahead of time, going to sit in a drive-through for 4 minutes, and then like be on their way to work or wherever else they're going. So it seemed like on the surface a missed opportunity. And so I wanted to talk about this today, Jenny Rae. Before we dive into some of the details, you have an initial reaction to Nickel's announcement.
Thanks, Naman. I think this does seem like a mistake, but I want to make sure that we're not conflating two things. One thing that I have understood about Starbucks, and I don't have the data on every piece of their store makeup, is that in general, there are a couple of places that they are operating where you can have this kind of model. So I don't actually know what falls under this. For example, on my birthday, I got my free Starbucks at a Starbucks kiosk inside a grocery store in Southern California. And that to me seems like a pickup only store because I had an interaction with the barista, but there was nowhere for me to sit, there was nowhere for me to meet. So I don't know if that kind of falls under this category, but there's a decent amount of foot traffic that was going through there. I did happen to think it was overstaffed. They had two baristas for something inside a grocery store that seemed a little bit aggressive to me at like 11:30 a.m. Maybe during the morning rush, but just didn't seem like it made a lot of sense for that specific time. Um, so I've been kind of trying to, pick my brain as you just opened the call today to think about why you would want to do this. So I think we should talk about a couple of the metrics that might fit it. But from what I know of Starbucks, they now today will not open a location unless it has a drive-through for this pickup style service. And so that to me tells me that it is core and material to the business operations. Brian Niccol has identified that long wait times in the drive-through or in the store are keeping people from coming in the store. But I don't see any business case off the top of my head for you spending more money if you're in the store or staying there for longer than if you're driving through. And so to me, the number one metric would be that would kind of counter this narrative would be if I have larger ticket prices. If I right total ticket sales. So if instead of spending 565, you're able to get me to spend 1275 every time I come into the store, and you believe that that is a large enough proportion of your customers, and these stores therefore are unprofitable because I cannot get people to spend that kind of money there. That would make sense. And I would suspect if I cut all of the data at Starbucks today that that would not be true.
Yeah, I looked and they don't split out. So what they do is they split out revenue by kind of order source. So you know, okay, what's like in-store purchase versus what's mobile, but that doesn't necessarily give you like how people are picking up their drinks. So like you could have a mobile order and still come inside the store, for example. So like the data that Starbucks shares doesn't actually give us that kind of insight. But from what I've seen, you're absolutely right. Um, it's not like there's some magical vortex you walk through when you walk through the door of a Starbucks and all of a sudden you're going to spend twice as much money. And so, but that would be the only reason I would do this is I would be funneling people in the store if I knew that I was going to be able to increase the ticket size or the basket size. Um, just
By the
to
way,
clarify,
can I just highlight here for you, like I do think that this is one of those places where I'm a big Brian Niccol fan, where his experience at Chipotle may be a bias that is less appropriate in the Starbucks setting. It could be the right bias, and I'm always open to being wrong when somebody else interprets something like this that I didn't. But like we've talked a little bit about retail, Target or Walmart having pickup is not the same kind of calculus because if you get me to walk into a Target, the number of things that I'm kind of just adding quickly to my cart as I'm in there does drive up my purchase value absolutely every single time. And it doesn't change the throughput process at Target because I already have two channels, which is one of the things that Starbucks is working to establish. I have the drive up and pickup channel, and then I also have the checkout channel. And so my ability to get out of the store with that stuff is still the same amount of friction. It's just, hopefully incremental. And I think they're really trying to figure out how, if I, Jenny Rae, am buying back to school stuff and I only buy exactly what I need, how do you get that extra $45 that I would have spent if I were inside the store? At Chipotle, there are add-ons. Maybe you don't order guac inside the app. Maybe you don't get a soda, right? Maybe there are things that you don't necessarily get when your core is food. And maybe Starbucks is trying to make the same play. Maybe they're saying what we really want is for people to always get food and drinks. And this is
they want you to
more
see that
the
cake
drinks
pop
only
through the
initiative.
glass. Right?
Yeah.
Like that could be it. I think, to be honest with you, this is even less of a short-term financial play. Like this costs more money in the short term because you have to do two things. Number one, you actually have pickup only stores that exist today. Starbucks launched them in 2019 in New York City. So you have to convert those to have seating. That's number one, which they're going to do. And then number two, you have to if you open more stores, like you have to have a larger retail footprint because you can't just have like a Dutch Bros style shack right on the corner of the road where someone can just drive through and pick up their order and never leave their car, or you can't just have like a small, 500 square foot type of, place where people can just walk in, pick up their drinks at the counter and walk right back out. So this is more expensive in the short term. So you have to believe, like we've already talked about, that the revenue potential outweighs the additional cost. I think this is just a brand play. And I think what Nicole is saying is like we are a premium brand and we have to reinforce the prices that we charge. We have to provide some kind of experience beyond coffee and food. There has to be like a vibe that you experience when you walk into Starbucks. And I think that's the conversation that's happening inside of Starbucks. Nicole has a marketing background. He seems like to me like a big vibes guy, right? And so like he cares a lot about like the brand perception. And when I first saw this, that was my instinct was he's trying to continue to position Starbucks as a premium provider in the market. And the decision that Starbucks has made is that premium equals in store and that not premium equals drive through. Now, we could have a whole conversation on like, is Starbucks really premium, right? Like, I would argue it's shitty, burnt, right? Coffee that like is overpriced for what it is, but that's a different conversation. But I think that's the decision that Starbucks is making. Um, and we'll see if it pays off or not. But that was really outside of the ticket price argument. The only other thing I could think of is that this is a brand play and that a differentiator in a world that's starting to be dominated more by that Dutch Bro style of coffee house would actually be to increase seating, would actually be to go back to trying to have a third place where people can come and hang out. And I'm just dubious on if that's really what consumers want.
Naman, I think that's really important. It really, like, if I were running these calculations, I'd want to see a ton of actually order data, right, in order to see this specific issue, not just by item, but by specific locations. I'd want to segment it out. I'd want to identify by time if there were key issues. I would suspect that if pickup only stores are underperforming, it's because of operations and staffing, not because they don't have seating. And so it's kind of one of those examples of maybe fixing the wrong thing for the wrong reason, but actually not reducing customer friction in the place where they are. And I would love to see, there's an airport Starbucks in the Sacramento airport that has always long lines, super terrible customer service. Like if that's an example of a pickup only store and the way that they've been running them, no wonder they look like trash on the financial side, right? If you that was the interpretation that you took, but this to me is fixing the wrong thing. Like adding seating inside that footprint, inside that store doesn't actually fix what consumers are looking for in those kinds of situations. And one of the things that Starbucks has always been actually really great about getting are repeat customer visits from consistent customer bases. And so
Mhm.
I would hate to see them destroy the flexibility and the speed that could come from a reimagined model here for pickup only. Now, I don't even know exactly what pickup only is, so that's one of the first things that you have to make sure if you're doing an analysis like this. If I were going to get all the data from Starbucks, I would think of my definition of pickup only. They might think of it a little bit differently. So I'd want to make sure I got that
Yeah.
categorization correct.
The way that I'm thinking about it for the purposes of this conversation is that it's not the Starbucks you see in a Target. It's not an airport Starbucks. It's like a standalone retail Starbucks location that has no seating and no option for you to drink a drink there. Like it's drive-through only, or you walk in, you grab a drink from the counter, and you leave. That's the way that I'm defining it. And when I listened to the earnings call, that's kind of the way that I interpreted what they were saying. But that would be the first thing to clarify is what the heck is a pickup only store actually? And by that definition, the one that I just laid out, it seems like there's around 90 Starbucks locations in the US that fit that criteria, right? If we were including a Starbucks and a Target and airport Starbucks, this would be 10x the number. So I think that that's the way that they're defining what a pickup only store is. Um,
Ron, can I
and
add
yeah.
one more piece of color that I
Hmm.
think also could be important here? I'm going back. One of our jobs is just try to put the dots together before they come together for other people. And so I'm going back to what happened, and we had covered this on a previous podcast with the manager meeting in Las Vegas. One of the Starbucks' goals is to invest in their people and to promote from within. And there is a possibility that this is driven by that comp goal or challenge instead of by anything else, so that people who are good managers will have the same ability to manage good performing stores, whereas this is kind of
Potentially.
throwing off the comp equation, right? And so maybe you feel like you don't have your great managers in these stores coming from these great stores. Maybe you feel like you don't want to give great managers oversight over these stores because it affects their overall comp or their trajectory inside the organization. But again, I'm suspicious. Not leaning into it, is one thing. And I guess it said they're ditching it. Again, I don't even know what that means. Does that mean all 90 of these shops are gone? Or does it just mean it's not a focus and they won't open another one ever again? Because again,
They're
I don't
retrofitting.
know. Yeah, they are. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think that's a astute point, right? It could be to placate managers and to even the playing field for your employees. I think what this portends, and they didn't mention this on the earnings call that I know of, but I think that there's a big change coming to the loyalty program. I think this is like a marker that they're laying down to say this is the kind of behavior that we want to see from our customers. And the next natural step to me is that you change the loyalty program to incentivize that kind of behavior. And so I could even see kind of like you getting bonus stars if you hit like $10 or more per transaction. Like there's like an accelerator that you hit, right? And they know that you're more likely to hit it if you come into the store. Or if you order a drink and you schedule the pickup at least 30 minutes out, there's like a bonus star that you get, right? To help them with some of this operational changes that they're making. Like I
or
think
you
when
buy 5 times a week, right?
exactly
You don't unlock it just when you buy any single transaction, but you buy it at thresholds that they're
at
looking to
thresholds.
grow. And
And
that would make
so,
sense to me because if your same store sales have fallen, a lot of people would, if you're, especially if you have a marketing background like Nicole, might have earlier in his career been like, let's go find new people to come back to
yeah.
Starbucks. But the right way always to do this is everybody who's already been there and is already loyal, just squeeze a little bit more juice out of them,
hmm
have them come a little bit more, introduce them to a new product or service when they're inside the store, get those ticket values up for each of the individual customers and get their frequency up, right? And
And
if you
so,
can manage those two factors, then you get to where you need to go.
and that's to me one of the reasons you standardize the store experience first. So that now when you change the loyalty program, like across your customer base, you're looking to incentivize the same behavior no matter kind of what location people are in, or no matter how they order, like the in-store experience is going to be very, very similar.
So if you say that they are retrofitting all 90 of these types of stores, and my vision of what this kind of standalone kiosk is, it's actually doesn't count the ones that are inside grocery stores or inside airports. That does make a little bit more sense to me because I would suspect that you would have a slightly higher ticket purchase item. What I don't know is if you can handle the same throughput. So I would not make that trade personally. But I am really curious. That's the kind of data that I would run is just a ton of scenario analysis on if you can, but again, like a lot of times in the data, what it will look like is that you can serve the same number of customers at the same values, just if they're seating inside the store. I would suspect that wouldn't actually be true in those specific footprints. So if they feel like they can preserve all of their current metrics and simply pull one additional lever, then the business decision makes sense. It's just that I suspiciously have not seen that happen
Yeah.
in practice in the wild. And so I doubt that that would actually materialize. Also, we're not talking about closing locations and opening new locations, which is a much larger capital expense. Retrofitting locations is a smaller expense. So easier to get over that hurdle with just a few more ticket, bumps for inside store on a daily basis. Naman, I have a question for you for Starbucks. I'm not a super Starbucks user. I couldn't tell you how the rewards program honestly works. Like I know that I get a free coffee on my birthday. I take my kids like once a year maybe to Starbucks, and then I'll grab when it is the most convenient option a Starbucks food item without coffee actually. And so but I'm wondering if you personally have a different experience. So if you go into a Starbucks store, do you buy more? Do you buy something different? Do you buy a more premium coffee, for example? Do you change what you purchase? Do you add on food if you are standing there in the line? Are you an example of the type of customer that they would, not a super loyal customer, but a type of customer that would be affected by the store experience?
So I'm the wrong guy to ask because I don't go to Starbucks. So it's just
Like
not
ever?
it's like I have to be like on a road trip needing coffee at 10 p.m. at night, and it's the only option around.
Do you
So
have the app?
I do have the app. I think I've had it since my college days. So it's just stayed on my phone. I used the app in college because the stars were helpful and the reward system's probably changed a lot in the last decade. But for me, what I cared about more when I was in college was, hey, like I need some free stuff here. Right. And so, you go and you buy a $2 coffee, you earn a star for the transaction, and after 5 or 10 transactions, you get a free drink, and that's when you can get the more expensive drink. Like that was kind of the way that I used the Starbucks rewards program way back in the day. But now, like, it's got to be the only option at an airport or the only option on a road trip for me to go. So, I maybe have Starbucks once a year, and for me, it's just because I'm not a huge fan of the product.
I think it's really interesting. And that's one interesting thing that I want to just bring back up is that there's a lot of dressing that you can do on a pig that nobody wants to buy. We had 3 piglets born at the farm last night. And so I'm thinking about pigs this morning. But, I remember doing some work for a tech company. It's been almost 2 decades now, but they really thought their business problem was something different, right? They thought that it was the competition, the pricing, the presentation, and what we just bought the product and tried to use it, and it was terrible. And I hope that Nicole is addressing if that is the core issue, the key theme. Although that could be going after the exact red herring problem that I was talking about earlier, which is like he could go try to get Naman into the stores. And maybe we would say, hey, Niccol has succeeded when Naman goes back to Starbucks. But
But that
Niccol
shouldn't be his
probably isn't
goal.
thinking that way, right? Niccol is
Yeah.
thinking like I'm succeeding if my dad, who is a more frequent Starbucks user, goes to Starbucks 7 more times a year, spends $8 more per transaction when he's there. All of those pieces of the puzzle will
Hmm.
fall together if he's able to kind of do that. But ultimately, Starbucks can't grow sustainably if they aren't also attracting new customers, and so there probably is a product challenge that they're going to have to come up with. Everything that they have is so sweet, right? In a market where we've seen wellness products take over, I suspect that there's some kind of market mismatch between what made Starbucks Starbucks today and what will make Starbucks Starbucks tomorrow. And those are things that I'd love to look at. But
Hmm.
I just want to say one
There.
more thing about the loyalty program, and then I'll turn it back to you. I don't know if you've used the Chick-fil-A loyalty program. And
Hmm.
what I don't know about Starbucks is whether or not they have, and if they don't have it, they've got to be going there soon. Some kind of like AI offer reorder integration that makes it super easy to reorder what you had yesterday. And I don't know if they want to incentivize you to reorder what you had yesterday, but I could see them putting a slight discount on yesterday's order. Or, if you order the same thing that you did yesterday, get a bonus thing at 50% to try to get people to kind of, create behavior that is really consistent. But I also would love to see the data on how many people use a single Starbucks versus how many people Starbucks hop, because I think one of the opportunities that you have to create that really, customized experience is with a barista who always handles your order and a customer who always goes to the same place. And I don't know actually how much of Starbucks makeup that is. I would suspect it's a pretty large part, but I
Hmm.
don't know how much it is. And so if you're going to really lean into that experience, I think it's again the wrong move if you have transient customers who you're not trying to build a relationship with inside a single store. If somebody just is brand loyal but not store loyal, and I would look at that really specifically.
Chick-fil-A does a really nice job of that because I get targeted with offers from specific operators.
Correct.
So I have to go to a certain store to get the coupon. It's not even any Chick-fil-A. And so you start to feel, unwittingly some kind of like kinship with that operator because you're like, hey man, thanks for the free chicken sandwich. Like
And they
Bri-
personalize it. It comes from
like
them.
it comes from them. It comes from Brian Johnson or whoever the operator is of my
Not
local Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for Starbucks, maybe they'll go that direction. Maybe the
Mhm.
manager of that Starbucks will be the one who is dropping those kinds of insights and human connection in an AI world, but powered by AI so that because Chick-fil-A
Mhm.
also is like, hey, do you want to reorder your last order? You have
Yep.
4 recent orders. You could pick any one of those. Maybe you just want to
Now,
start.
if I was Starbucks, what I would be doing is I'd actually be trying to incentivize you to order now for tomorrow. So like if you ordered a breakfast at 7:30 in the morning, I'd say, do you want a 10% discount for pre-ordering tomorrow's? And I'd be trying to capture that share. Like
Can
I'd
you
be trying to
explain
capture
why? Because
tomorrow's
I
share of
I know
wallet.
why, but maybe everybody wouldn't intuitively know why.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, once I've committed that tomorrow's coffee and breakfast is going to be from Starbucks, like you have my share of wallet for tomorrow's breakfast. I'm not like, no matter what offer I get from Chick-fil-A later in the day or from McDonald's or from Dunkin', it doesn't matter. I've already committed and put my money where my mouth is that tomorrow's breakfast is Starbucks. And I would give away some margin for that certainty that I'm going to get you back in the store tomorrow. And so that's the kind of retargeting I'd be thinking about if I was Starbucks is, hey, Naman, you ordered a coffee at 7:30. And this is again where AI could come in. It seems like you order coffee consistently between like the hours of 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning. You're in this location, right? Do you just want to go ahead and pre-order for the week, right? And if that was a part of my routine, sure, I'll take the 5 or the 10% discount. And then Starbucks knows it's got that revenue locked in for the week. It also knows how much it needs to staff. Like the more that you can like determine demand ahead of time, the more efficient you can be with your staffing and with the allocation of work. And so there's just multiple benefits to knowing ahead of time what's coming through your pipeline.
Speaking of which, one of the most terrible staffers in the United States is TSA, because talk about predetermined demand that is absolutely fixed and set. You know every single day exactly how many passengers are coming through that TSA line at exactly every single time, and they still can't get it right. And so we're talking about a pretty advanced operational challenge there that some organizations have absolutely managed to botch. And if you've ever been in a TSA line, standing there wondering, why are there 600 people staffing these four travelers, or why are there four people staffing these 9,000 travelers? That's a great time to think about these kinds of issues. I just want to highlight, like, if that wouldn't necessarily be the right business decision, even with that kind of incentive. And I ran analyses just like these at Bain, which were kind of like, what kind of incentives could we give? We were often interested in margin that was more predictable. A 10% margin on a Starbucks order is a pretty significant portion of the margin on a Starbucks order. And so I would have to believe that somebody wouldn't just change their behavior to the day before for a 10% discount. So actually, I probably wouldn't want to target my most consistent customers. I'd
Right.
want to target
It's the occasional customers.
occasional customers
Mhm.
to try to get them more consistently into my store, because otherwise you're giving away margin that was already
For no
there.
reason. Yeah.
Again, that's why I was having you tease out the reasons, because I think sometimes people could be like, oh, like that guarantee means something to Starbucks. Maybe operationally, if you can save the margin that you're giving away by scaling back staffing to demand, then maybe. But if what you're actually trying to do is juice demand and better utilize the cost that you already are spending on your staff and everything in store, then if no, look again, if I go from 4 to 5 a week, that might incentivize me. If it's easier for me to do that, it still might be the right decision. But what I'm really looking for is the 1 a week to 3 a week, right? I'm looking for that kind of incremental bump for people who are becoming more loyal. And so on a loyalty curve, you'd want to look at that
Mhm.
customer segmentation data to figure out when and where you'd want to push those kinds of offers. You also have to test the offers to see if they work, right?
If
So
they
in the
were,
wild, you have
yeah.
to figure out if I give this offer to people, do I get them to do what I want them to do, and are they the people that I want to get to do that?
And you've got different customer profiles in different parts of the country. Like you might need a different offer in New York City than you do down here in Austin than you do in Southern California. And so there's a geographical bent to this as well that would have to be tested.
Yeah, I think this is a great example of how they are probably operating with a lot more data than we are. They also have specific goals, but if you just read a headline, then you think this doesn't fit the vibe, you would miss out on all of the color underneath what's going on. So I'm really interested to see if this is a part of what revamps Starbucks, or if leaning into those kinds of mobile only stores would have actually been the right move. We'll never know, but we will know what happens on this track.
That's it for this edition of Market Outsiders. If you have a perspective on Starbucks, leave a comment on Spotify or shoot us an email. You can reach us at podcast@managementconsulted.com. If you like what you heard or you have an idea for a future episode, then leave us a rating and review. We read every single comment, every single review, and a lot of the episodes that we do are based directly on listener feedback. We hope you have a wonderful Thursday. We hope you close out July strong, and we will see you tomorrow.